I bet you all have gotten so used to starting with an awful Twitter video of Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, Theresa Tam, or something that you were expecting it now and to come straight to me. Well, hopefully it's a delightful surprise. I didn't have any interesting video to start this stream off with, and I don't think we're going to need anything that's going to be anything. There will be nothing that is going to be as interesting as this stream. Dinesh DSouza, he's been in the news recently because of the documentary 2000 Mules. And for anybody who hasn't seen the documentary or doesn't necessarily understand the title, 2000 Mules refers to the alleged people who were allegedly carrying more than one ballot, allegedly for the purposes of depositing many ballots in drop boxes, who are referred to as mules. You know, you have various types of mules that carry out allegedly illicit activity. And the documentary is fascinating. We're going to talk about the documentary itself, among other things. Like you go to Wikipedia and you look up Dinesh's Wikipedia entry, and there's, I mean, it would almost be fun to do one dedicated episode of people responding to the accusations in their Wikipedia entries. But we're going to do a bit of an intro on both YouTube and Rumble, and then we're taking this over exclusively to Rumble, because obviously there are things we can't say the 5-letter F word. You know, you got the 4-letter F word, which is the one we grew up with. You got the 6-letter F word, which is allegedly the one that Justin Trudeau used in Parliament to describe political adversaries. And I think it's the 6-letter F word with 2 G's in the middle of it. And now you've got the 5-letter F word, which rhymes with Rod and Todd and starts with F, that you can't mention on YouTube because the Ministry of Truth, the proverbial disinformation government's platform, says you can't talk about it because there are certain things which historically have been so unheard of, so such anomalies that they don't happen. And if you think they happen, it must make you a theorist of the conspiring nature. So we're going to do a little intro. I see Dinesh and Barnes are in the background. We're going to do a little intro, just get to know, you know, Dinesh's elevator pitch, maybe childhood. Then we're going to shut the stream down on YouTube and go over to Rumble exclusively. Here you see these things. Standard disclaimers, by the way. Red Viking, Viva, you make too much content, can't follow up. Red Viking, my wife says the same thing, and I think she might be right, but my problem is I can't even break it down to put the clips out, to put the highlights out. But yeah. Okay. Super chats, they're going to be irrelevant after the first 15 minutes. We're going to go to Rumble. Rumble has these things called Rumble rants. 20% goes to Rumble, 80% goes to the creators, so you can feel better on both fronts. There might be election fortification discussion here. So I might have to actually, on YouTube, there will be no medical advice, legal advice, election fortification advice. But on Rumble, we're going to say what we really think. Post the Rumble link, please. Good point. This is it. Hold on just 1 second. While everyone trickles in here, only to be referred over, I'm going to put the link in the pinned comment now that I know how to do it. Boom. No, stop moving, chat. Pin message. There we go. Boom. The link to the Rumble page is pinned. Now, without further ado, 4 minutes in, I said it would be 2 to 4 minutes. I'm going to I'll bring in Barnes first. I'll bring in Dinesh. I'm going to put Dinesh at the top. I'm going to go at the bottom. And Dinesh, how are you doing, sir?
Hello.
I'm going to let everyone tell me if the audio levels are good. Dinesh, we're gonna go over a lot of things, talk about a lot of things. Everybody knows my MO. For anybody who might be watching, who might not know who you are, and I doubt that's going to be very many people, the overall 30,000-foot elevator pitch before we get into childhood, how you got to where you are, before we close this on YouTube and really have the discussion on Rumble. Elevator pitch, who are you?
Well, I was born in Mumbai, India. I grew up in a middle-class family. I came to the United States at the age of 17 as an exchange student. I was fortunate to be admitted to a good college, Dartmouth College. And then I kind of caught the Reagan bug. And in my 20s, I became a young policy analyst in the Reagan administration in the White House. I worked in think tanks for about 20 years, so-called research foundations. I was a little bit of a pointy-headed intellectual, published a range of books. And then about 10 years ago, I made my first political documentary. It was about Obama, kind of the unknown story about Obama. And now I've made 6 political documentaries and 1 feature film. And this latest film, 2000 Mules, is, I think, perhaps my most important, in that it touches on a topic of fundamental importance to a democracy. Namely, do we have one at all?
What was life like at Dartmouth, and how much was it a shock from growing up?
Well, I arrived knowing nothing about the cold and really not being properly equipped for the freezing New Hampshire winters. I also was in high school right on the Mexican border in Arizona, and having had a good education in India, I thought, these American kids are unbelievably dumb. But then when I got to Dartmouth, I realized that this was a completely different caliber of student who had gone to a completely different caliber of school. And so it was a wonderful experience for me. Actually taught me critical thinking in a way that I had never learned in India, and was kind of my introduction to the American dream, just the abundance of opportunities in those Ivy League colleges. Of course, many of them have completely betrayed their original mission, but there was still something of the old Dartmouth when I went there, and I got a very good education there.
If we can back it up even well before that, you were born and raised in Mumbai. When did you leave India?
In 1978, at a time when actually India was doing very badly. It was the begging bowl of the world. Everybody of my generation wanted to get out. The smart kids all went to America to come to university here. Some people, like my brother, joined a merchant marine and went on board a ship as a cadet out of Singapore. So people were basically fleeing the country in droves. Now, India is different today. But in the India that I grew up, the basic message was, if you want to have a life, you need to leave.
Now, how often have you gone back to India?
I've gone back probably 20 times. I mean, my family is all in India. See, I came alone. So my parents were in India. They're dead now. But my brother and sister both live there. They have families there. So it was my custom to go back every year or every couple of years. But of course, I haven't gone since COVID. So I'm looking forward to my next trip.
And now, judging from what I read online, it says you were raised in a middle-class family in India. Your father was an executive for Johnson & Johnson. What does that childhood look like in Mumbai, India, for people who have never lived anywhere but North America? What was life like as a child, as a middle-class family, compared to lower? I don't know what it would be, lower class. What does that life actually look like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the way to understand India is that unlike the United States, which is sort of more of a pear-shaped society with a small group of relatively small group of people way at the top, the majority in the middle, and then a relatively small population of poor people at the bottom. India is more of a pyramid, a giant group of poor people at the bottom, and then a decent-sized middle class. Probably quite big now, but when I was growing up, it was still a small sliver of society, and then an even tinier group of wealthy and affluent people who basically ran the country. To grow up middle class in my generation was by and large not to lack anything. I never missed a meal. I never went hungry. But on the other hand, basic amenities that we take for granted in America, I did not have in India. For example, we didn't have hot water. We didn't have a shower. We had a radio, but we didn't have a television. We didn't have a phone. There was a 7-year wait in the socialist government of India to get a phone. So we were on the waiting list for pretty much all my growing up years. And we finally got a phone after I already left India. But my uncle had a phone upstairs. And so we'd get a phone call. They'd call his house. We'd all go running upstairs to answer the phone. So, this was India. Of course, we didn't see it as any form of deprivation. In fact, we saw ourselves as quite privileged because there were people living on the street who didn't know where the next meal was coming from. And we mainly compared ourselves to them.
Now, in terms of religious beliefs, how has that progressed over your life?
My family was originally Hindu, but converted to Christianity several generations ago. The reason I have the last name D'Souza, which is a Portuguese name, is because when my ancestors converted, they were probably converted by Portuguese missionaries. The Portuguese, by the way, had colonies in India in a place called Goa. And typically, when the Indians converted, they took the Christian name of the person who converted them. And so I have an Indian first name, Dinesh, which kind of means God of the Sun in Hindustani. And then my last name, D'Souza, is a Portuguese name that was obviously, I don't have any Portuguese ancestry or blood, but it reflects the conversion experience of one of my ancestors. By the way, going back a couple of centuries.
And how many languages do you speak?
Just two. I spoke by and large English at home. So this is the language of the Indian middle class. It's the business language in India. Pretty much anywhere in India, you'll find people who speak English, and of course, more today than even then. But then we spoke on the street, government officials, you hail a cab, you go on a bus, you have to speak Hindustani. So English and Hindustani were my two languages growing up.
Now, how difficult was it breaking into the documentary space? Because I've had friends that are, from Hollywood who tried to do it and said that the capital was so, and the distribution networks, all of it was so tied up in liberal or left-leaning ideologies that it was very difficult to fund conservative films to even get it to its audience.
I think the problem I would describe this way, that creative people by and large are good on the creative side, but they don't know how to raise money. And then you have a separate group of people who know how to raise the money, but they don't know how to make a movie. And then if you find people who are creative and you happen to have the business skills and they can raise the money and make the movie, they don't know how to market it. So there are all these different elements. Now, if you're on the left, if you're Michael Moore, you go to a studio, they give you $10 million. You make the movie, and then all you do is hand it over to them, and they will book you on every conceivable show. You're on The View, you're on The Today Show, you're on Good Morning America. So your path is sort of rolled out for you already. You only have to do one thing, and that is make the film. But on the conservative side, you need to have some legal expertise and get the documents. You've got to raise the money. You've got to make the movie. You got to have the production values. And you've got to understand what makes these films work. I mean, a film is basically an entertainment. And I cannot tell you how many people come to me and say, make this film. It's a very important message. And I say, well, yeah, but people don't go to the theater for a message. They go to the theater to be entertained. Now, if you entertain them, you can smuggle in all kinds of messaging and people will happily digest it. Hollywood, by the way, understands this. They put all kinds of messaging into their entertainments, but you can never lose sight of the fact that people are going to the movies to have fun.
Well, I know that people of ill intent are going to clip that section right there and then twist it to your documentary 2000 Mules in terms of suggesting that there was stuff there, meant for entertainment, but not for entire accuracy. But that's the segue into me saying goodbye to YouTube. Everyone watching on YouTube now, 2,600, go over to Rumble. The link is the pinned comment, and I'm going to remove from YouTube and then go to Rumble to make sure we're still there. Removing. Are you sure you want to remove?